Let's move to banking and insurance, two critical sectors in these pandemic times. How to reach customers with the right message when the normal channels are no longer relevant. Leo Shanahan spoke with Suncorp's Chief Marketing Officer, Mim Haysom.
Mim Haysom, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Leo. Great to be here.
Now, look, I wanted to ask you, this must be one of the most extraordinary times in your career in marketing. How does this rate in comparison to, say, the GFC?
Yeah, look, I think we've never seen anything like this, really, for a range of reasons. I think, first of all, the suddenness and the severity of the changes in terms of what we're seeing financially, but also socially. Everything has changed pretty much overnight. So while we've seen economic downturns before and recessions and GFCs, this has been quite profound in terms of the severity of the impact, but also the suddenness. So I do think it's absolutely unprecedented times. We haven't seen anything quite like it.
Now, Mim, tell us about the challenges in working for a bank at this time. Of course, during the global financial crisis, banks were under a great deal of pressure. We've seen since then the Royal Commission, a lot of distrust of the banks. They've really undergone a bit of a crisis in Australia. How important is this crisis, where the banks are really an institution that people are leaning on again to return that level of trust?
Yeah, look, I think that's a really great question. I think the banks as an industry are working really well together and working with the ABA to take an industry-wide approach to how we lean into the situation that we're in as a community in Australia. And I think what we're seeing is these institutions and the banks doing a really great job of putting customers and communities first and making sure that we are there to support customers, to support those who are finding themselves in a financially vulnerable situation. And as you said, you know, I think the community view on trust of these institutions and of banks generally, you know, we see it go through waves. And, you know, we've just come off more recently the Royal Commission, where we were at an all-time low as an industry in terms of consumer trust. But I do think that this environment that we're in now will help to rebuild that trust quicker than if we were in normal times, because I think we are seeing banks and these institutions leaning in to support customers and really do the right thing for the community to stabilise the situation.
Yeah, and what kind of help are customers asking for at the moment? Obviously, loan deferrals would be a big one, or reduced interest payments. Tell us a bit about what Suncorp is doing in that regard.
Yeah, look, I think customers are asking for a wide variety of things, and it depends on the customer base and the customer segments. So, as you mentioned, there are some customers who are taking up loan deferrals or repayment deferrals if they're finding that they're in financial hardship because they've lost their job. But then we're also seeing other parts of the community, like some of the older parts of the community, who are finding themselves having to be in isolation, who, you know, one of the highlights of their week was going into the branch to see the team that they know and that they have a chat with every week, and now they're having to navigate potentially doing online banking or digital banking, which is something they've never done before, and they're also not getting that social interaction. So I think there's financial and there's social aspects of what customers need and want, and it depends on the customer, and we have to think about all of those considerations when we're dealing with customers. But of course, the financial support packages, there's definitely a cohort of customers who are requiring that, absolutely.
Now let's talk about the challenges in marketing in this environment. Obviously, advertising spend is down across the board. Media companies really feeling the effects of that. Suncorp is continuing its marketing in this period. Tell us why and what mediums you still think are going to be effective.
Yeah, so we are maintaining our program of work, although we're pivoting it to lean into the situation that we're in. So from a marketing perspective, we feel that we still need to absolutely be visible. We are a bank, and we've got a portfolio of insurance brands across the country, and these are essential services. So we still need to be there for our customers. We need to be talking to them, telling them what's on offer for them. So we absolutely need to be visible. Really importantly, we need to be relevant. relevant. So we are looking at what are the messages that we're taking to market. We're talking a lot more in all channels about the financial support packages we've got on offer, so that we are talking to our customers about the things that are important to them right now. And we're also optimising our plans. So as you said, there are some media channels that we may have had planned for, BAU everyday campaigns that are no longer effective or relevant. So cinema is a great example of that. Yeah. There is no cinema anymore. The way people that are engaging with media channels and how they're sourcing their information has changed. And, similar to cinema and out-of-home changing, broadcast video on demand has increased 36% since pre-lockdown. So we're just seeing different engagement levels in different channels, and we're switching out our media mix to reflect that. So for us, it's about being visible, relevant, and optimising the activity that we had planned to make sure we're in the right place with the right information for our customers.
How does your psychology as a marketer change in a time of crisis? You have to kind of pivot to some very, as you referred to, some very kind of basic levels of really information that people need to know, how they can service their loans, interest rates. But how does your psychology change at a point of crisis as opposed to, I used to say, normal times?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's not a lock and load mentality. And what I mean by that is pretty much weekly, we have to, or daily even at the moment, we're reviewing what our plans are and what we're taking to market and what we're talking to customers about. So what we found in this environment is that customers really quickly wanted to know what was on offer to help support them if they needed it. What I think we're starting to see a little more now, and what I think we will continue to see more of over the coming months, is as people become more comfortable perhaps in their financial situation and they're in lockdown longer, they're actually looking for engagement, content that's not just informative, that's going to entertain them. So without being frivolous, for us, we're thinking about what role can our brands play in providing interesting content for our audience and for our customers further down the track, when they're not only looking for information to get them through the crisis. So I think for us, there's that healthy balance of, the informative but still having some brand engagement that I guess is a little less functional. So a great example of that is what we've done with Netball Australia. We've partnered with NetFit, and because we haven't got the broadcast netball games happening, how can we work with Netball Australia to stay engaged with that cohort of customers that are very loyal? We've partnered with Netball Australia and NetFit to develop online clinics for young girls to keep up netball skills, connections, and online fitness camps and things like that. So, there's different approaches to stay connected to your audience, but, being relevant is really important, as I said, at this point in time.
Yeah, and this is a unique crisis in a lot of ways, because recovery, I suppose, is so reliant upon the public health issues involved. But for a marketer, it's always going to be crucial to get ahead of that curve. What do you think recovery looks like in this environment, and how do you kind of return to a new normal?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of research and evidence from previous financial crises. And granted, as we said before, this one's completely unusual. But I do think there's historic evidence that suggests that the brands that continue to invest in their marketing and continue to engage and connect with customers are the brands that come out of situations like this the strongest, and therefore bounce back, so to speak. So for us, it's really important, again, that we keep supporting the brands, continuing on with a relevant marketing program, and then as the economy begins to recover, really listening to what customers need and responding to that in terms of the offers that you put out into market.
All right, Mim Hayson, thanks so much for joining us.